Wait a minute. We're speaking truth to power. Truth to power. Wait a minute. We're speaking truth to Truth to power. Truth to power. Wait a minute. We're speaking truth to power. Truth. Myself. Information, and lions. Welcome to truth to power.
This is Information Man and Lion's Den. Welcome.
Welcome. I want to first thank everybody out there for listening to our show this evening. We had a little bit of trouble on Monday. There was some technical difficulties that we were dealing with. So the live stream on YouTube, Speaker.com, and Facebook Live, it all went pretty bad for us. But we're back on a Wednesday night. Tuesday evening. Let me correct myself. I'm already thinking about the weekend early in advance. But we're back to make up for Monday night with Tuesday night right now. So we're going to get into a few issues tonight. As everybody know out there, Jordan Peele won the Oscar for Best Original Screenplay. And I want to tell everybody out there, the Get Out movie was an excellent film on a very deep psychological level. What the brother was doing there, very talented. Reports out today say that when he was writing the overall screenplay, he had moments when he wanted to stop writing it. He thought that he was maybe doing the wrong thing, but turned out to be a golden goose for the brother. So, and I did a YouTube about that today, so check that out on the show, Information Man Show. Everybody out there listening, check out the latest installment. It's called basically Jordan Peele wins the Oscar. Do Black People Need Hollywood? Black Films. And I kind of chronicle some of the history of cinema as it relates to how black people have been reflected in cinema in this country we call America. With that said, I'm gonna tonight. I had a chance to listen to Mr. Larry Elder. Larry Elder is a self-proclaimed black conservative. He has a radio show. He's in the Los Angeles area. He's best also known for being a judge on a show called Moral Authority. And he's one of these black conservatives who has this sort of ideology that racism is a figment of black people's imagination, that we need to get over it. We need to stop having this victimhood type of mentality. It's the same type of ideology that one Clarence Thomas, who recently was in a couple articles a couple weeks ago, talking about that America is a nation of victimhood, and he's particularly pointing his victimhood at African American or black people or people of color or people that are melanated in this world. And he's one of these brothers who, because he has made it in the world of success in terms of being a judge, however, Clarence Thomas hardly ever speaks on the Supreme Court. He hardly ever says a word, okay, out of his freaking mouth. But he's one of these self-proclaimed, I pulled myself up from my bootstraps type of Negroes. And nobody gets anywhere in this world without someone helping them, someone assisting them, someone empowering them. That's the bell right there. My man Lion's Den will be coming on in. But no one gets wherever they get in the world without any type of help. And Larry Elder, the Armstrong Williamsons of the world, the all these different conservatives that are out here, they seem to enjoy being the only one, being the only Negro in the crowd, being the only Negro in the conservative party. All right, being the only one. And they seem to separate themselves as I'm the good Negro versus all those black people that are Democrats and progressives. Those are the bad Negroes, master. Can I get my cornbread? So they sort of have this mentality about themselves as it relates to separating themselves from the masses of black folks because they're a special type of Negro, a Negro who doesn't engage in buffoonery, right? Because they are part of the Republican Party. Now, on Monday, I was getting a little long-winded about the breakdown of the Republican Party, but I'm going to give a short synopsis of this. The Republican Party was originally the party that black people were affiliated with politically because it was the party of Lincoln. And as you know, Lincoln, as they've told us in history, freed slaves. However, that's not very true. If you read a book called Bell's Capitalism and Slavery, talks about, I think we have somebody in the chat room on YouTube. How you doing, brother? Lee Johnson's looking at us. I thought you was British. No, brother. Lee Johnson on YouTube thought that I was British. No, I'm not British, brother. I'm far from being a colonial. I don't talk colonial language, sir. But I like fish and chips if I can get some. But I'm not British, sir. You know. It's bloody tough to be a black Englishman in America. No, brother. I'm 100% melanated man here. That's what I call myself. 100% melanated man. So getting back into the history, I digress here. So black folks were originally Republicans because of Abraham Lincoln, who only freed the slaves because in a book called Bell's Capitalism and Slavery, Abraham Lincoln stated that he would do anything he needed to do to keep the Union strong. If it meant maintaining slavery, he would do so. He simply freed a few African Americans, black slaves in the South, particularly in the Texas area, which is why we celebrate Juneteenth every year in June, of course. And it was basically economic sanctions that Abraham Lincoln put on the South to punish them because the South was making big time money. If I'm not mistaken, cotton was king. And as a result, the South was making money hand over foot with their slave labor. So the North was pretty much trying to keep it together. But however, the North is no stranger to racism and oppression because in the North, you had what we call sundown cities, Lions Den, and everybody out there listening. Sundown cities were basically cities where if you were black and you were caught and you were there after the sun goes down, you best to be getting out or there's going to be a hell of a price to pay. If you're running around in a sundown city as a black person, you're going to be subject to a lot of trouble, a lot of pain, a lot of heartache can happen to you. So, and these sundown cities were mostly in the North. And one of the last states in the Union to really abolish slavery altogether, completely, believe it or not, you had a lot of slavery and oppression going on in New Jersey, right next to New York. So the North has never been this bastion of equality, even though a lot of black folks moved to the North, mainly for economics, jobs, Detroit, Ohio, okay, Cincinnati, Ohio, Pittsburgh, Flint, Michigan. You had the cannery companies, You had the car industry in Detroit. This is the time when America was in an industrial revolution, industrializing. So you could get a good job without a college education, buy a house, get your kids through school. Those days are over, which is why Detroit and many of these northeastern states in this country are in bad shape because all the factories and all the jobs they left and they went across seas and they went elsewhere. So I'm just giving a little history of that. Now, the Democratic Party was the party of Dixiecrats. So most of the Democratic Party was sort of like the Republican Party is today. It was made up of very, very racist individuals. Not that the Republican Party wasn't racist. They were just as racist too. But the Dixiecrats, which is what the original name of the Democrats were, they were a Southern type of party. And when Dr. Martin Luther King and many of the black folks like John Lewis and Andrew Young, Jesse Jackson, Ralph Abernathy, people like, my sister Rosa Parks, which I'm going to do a YouTube on Rosa Parks because I got some explosive, powerful information about Rosa Parks that a lot of people don't know about the history of her. But Rosa Parks and just many of the black folks who laid it on the line for us in the civil rights movement, a lot of them were treated very badly by the Dixiecrats. And it was LB who was a Dixiecrat. LB stated that he told the civil rights movement, if you want Voters' Right Act, you got to make me do it. Make me do it. I ain't going to just do it because you want me to do it. So, of course, protest marching, people speaking up, standing up and getting out there. And eventually they forced LB's hand. And that's when he signed the 1965 Voters' Right Act. Okay. And when he did that, LB admitted that we have lost the South for decades. And that's exactly what happened. They lost the South for decades, folks, which brought about a change in the Democratic Party because all those racist Dixiecrats, they jumped from the Democratic Party over to the Republican Party. And the Republican Party began to morph itself into what we have today. Okay? And which is the racism, the oppression, we're going to only be for big business, and we're going to do anything that affects poor, working class, or black people. Okay? You had a man named Lee Atwater who came out with a scientific way to manipulate the race issue. He stated, in the 1950s, you could say the word nigga, nigga, nigga. You can't say that N-word, nigga, 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 anymore today. So you have to be abstract with your racism, as abstract as possible. How are you abstract? You have situations where you talk about forced busing, okay? You talk about a right to work state. You use coded language. White people have been using coded language for years. And we as black people, we have to understand the coded language. When they were calling President Obama a socialist, a Muslim, that he wasn't a citizen, that was just a way of saying, and when they were saying things like, we want our country back, it was just another coded language in dog whistle saying, we got to get our country back. We can't have Negroes, N-words running this country. Oh, hell no, we can't. So they used their racism and disguised it in the form of saying that he was not this and he wasn't a citizen and all of that. So this is how these parties have kind of shifted. So I'm going to be honest, black people traditionally started off as Republicans because of their sort of their liking to Abraham Lincoln. And we know that Abraham Lincoln, if you do any research, he didn't really care anything about black people. Now, there's a rumor that Abraham Lincoln was partially black himself, there's an old tale, wise tale, that the reason why Abraham Lincoln is on the penny and he's on the lowest number of the money currency in this country is because he freed black slaves and because he was also he was one of the sheep of the family. He had that black blood in him. Now that's one of the folklores or one of the things that you'll hear out there. What's up, my man? I see a few people in the chat room. So I want to thank the brothers out there that are listening. So that's a little small history. And in general, when you look at black culture, in terms of our belief in religion, our belief in family, overall, black people, we tend to be conservative. Okay. The black church is very conservative. They're very conservative when it comes to same-sex marriage. The black church, black people, we're very conservative when it comes to the issue of sexuality, even though we know we have people that are gay in the church and in our community. So let me read here. The brothers are popping off in the chat room, Lions, and I'm going to come to you, brother, very soon. Let's see. Hey, old Rocket, I added your Instagram. Thanks a lot, brothers, for adding me to your Instagram. I really appreciate it. My Instagram page for the show is Information Man Show on Instagram. Lions Den, with that said, I'm setting a background here. So we know that black people have had a history of being in the conservative party. A lot of black people shifted from the Republican Party to the Democratic Party simply because the Democratic Party was speaking to our needs and our issues as the Republican Party began to shift itself and morph itself into this more of a party for corporations, more of a party that serves and has mostly white people in mind, in my opinion. And so one of the reasons why black people have been loyal to the Democratic Party is because they have been the party that has most spoken to our needs. However, the Democratic Party does take us for granted. I know that I'm seeing how they are really going to bat for the docker, for the dreamers, but I don't ever remember the Democratic Party going hard for black people the way they are for the dreamers. Now, I'm not hating on the dreamers. I'm just making an observation that I just noticed. I don't remember the Democratic Party ever going hard for us, whether it be for reparations, whether it be for making sure that the Voter Right Act is in place. Because remember, every couple of years, they have to reinitiate the Voters Right Act. They're basically saying to you, black people, that you're not a citizen. All right. And at one time in this country, they deemed black people as 3/5 human beings. OK, 3/5 human beings. OK, the brother says it's why I'm neither Democrat or Republican. OK. Well, both parties are the same. Both Democratic Party and Republican Party are the two birds of the same feather. I'm going to show you why. The ego is one of the symbols that they use. If you notice with the ego, when the ego spreads its wings, I'm spreading my arms out. There's a left side, there's a right side, left side, and there's a right side. There's only two branches of two parties that run things in this country, the Republicans and the Democrats, which is why a third party has never been successful, because this country was built on that two-party system. Okay? The Democrats will say, hey, we'll help you black folks with these social problems. So let me just use an analogy. The Democrats basically screw us with Vaseline. And the Republicans just say, you know what, we're going to screw you and we're not going to use any Vaseline in screwing you. That's the difference in my harsh analogy of how the Democrats and the Republicans operate. So with that said, Lions Den, we found some audio with one Larry Elder talking about black folks like a dog on a show. And we're going to play the audio and we're going to dissect that audio tonight. We're also going to play the audio of his despicable opinions about gun control. We're going to be all over it because Larry Elders has an issue with Black Lives Matter. He has an issue with black people who stand up and speak out and resist and speak and that are progressive. Now, my brother, the odd, brother, I got to pronounce your name of your show properly. But right now I'm going to read what you got to say. You said, I can't stand Larry Elder. Dude, I will also, let me see here. Let me see. I will also, the other, I can't make that out, but he can't stand Larry Elder. Brother, I know you can't stand him. I can't stand him either. So Larry Elder has a lot of discontent for black folks, for his own people. He talks about us like a dog. And I contend, as I come to you, Lions Den, I contend that the reason why the only thing that makes black conservatives relevant is the fact that they will talk about black people like a dog. So they're sort of the dog whistle, or they're sort of the Pied Piper for the white political establishment, because instead of the white politicians talking about us like this, if they do, they'll be called a racist. So they have their, what I would call lapdog, or their token blacks. Those who think that they have arrived in American society, they will use them to talk about black people like a dog. They used them when President Obama was in office. You had all these black conservatives talking about President Obama like a dog. They were piling all over him, right? And if you notice, as soon as Obama got out of office, all these black personalities on television, MSNBC, Fox, what I would call propaganda news, because they're not real news, they all seem to disappear off of television. You don't hear much from the black conservatives. Matter of fact, you don't even hear much from them as it relates to the racism of Donald Trump. Okay? And I remember at one point in time, the chair of the Republican Party was Larry Elder. Not Larry Elder, I'm sorry. Let me correct myself. It was Michael Steele. I'm correcting myself, folks. It was Michael Steele who was the chair. He was a brother that had his own mind and wanted to bring his own people in. And as soon as he thought he could be his own person, they got rid of that Negro so fast before you could brush your teeth in the morning. Okay? So that's what's going on. I'm going to bring it over to you, the Lion's Den. Let the people know, what is your, you did some research, and what is your opinion about this subject tonight?
Well, thank you, Info, for and hello everybody on Spreaker.com and YouTube and on Twitter and Facebook. You know, I saw the video and I heard what Larry Elders had to say. Majority of the things he said was complete false, wasn't true, outright lies. And I mean, when we play this video, I'm going to distort his lies, because some of the stuff that I did a lot of research. As you know, I doubled down, tripled down all the research that I found out. And one of the research that he was referring to doesn't exist. So, Info, I'm ready to do this. Let's get this done, because, you know, to show to the world that Larry Elders didn't do his homework on when it comes to police officers murdering black people or black on black crime.
Okay, brother. I would say, what a thunder, brother. What a thunder.
Hi, I'm Barack Obama. You're listening to Lion's Den and Information Man.
Okay, brother. We're going to go with the first clip. Everybody out there, sit back, relax, get your drink, whatever you like, your beverage, get your popcorn, as To said, get your popcorn ready. We're going to diagnose the mindset of a black conservative who is definitely a coon sellout, as they say. And Larry Elder, to me, represents, he's a super black conservative. He represents everything that I think is wrong. And this, don't get me wrong tonight. I'm not saying that if you're a black conservative that you're a bad person. I'm talking about the black conservatives out there who refuse to recognize that there are some social ills going on still. Okay? It's not about, let me say, I'm getting sick and tired of being sick and tired of hearing people say, well, every time black people talk about racism and prejudice, you're just being a victim. You're talking victimhood. No, it's not. Because most black people, when we wake up in the morning and brush our teeth, wash our behinds, we get up like everybody else and put our pants on. And we say, I want to go out and work, take care of my family, take care of myself, take care of my loved ones. We want to just be able to be productive like anyone else. And a lot of times racism comes to us. We don't go walking around, waking up. I don't wake up in the morning and say, wow, I can't wait to go out into the world and look for racism towards me. No, racism comes towards us. I can go to a store, brother, as I've done today, and walk around and go shopping. And I can start a damn parade in the store, because you will have people every time you turn around walking up to you saying, can I help you? Can I help you? And I know that in the stores they will ask that question. But a lot of times, if you ever notice as a black person, when you go somewhere, shopping malls and stores, you get so many more people asking, can they help you? Concern about whether you're going to pay for the merchandise. Concern whether you're going to run your black behind out the door when you buy the, you create a parade, and you still have the situations where you'll have particularly white women who will think that we're going to snatch their bags out of their hand. So those stereotypes still remain as a black man in society. Okay, your chances of being stopped by a cop just for driving while black. You don't even have to violate the law, traffic laws. You could be stopped because they could think that, you got a fancy car, maybe you're a drug dealer. So black people, black men in particular, when we walk out the door, we're already a target. So we don't ask for the racism. The racism comes to us. We simply respond or react to it, right? There's some people who will say, hey, I know who I am. So they can not like me, but I still know who I am. Some of us may react to racism more emotionally because we're all different people. Let me also preference something else tonight. I'm not in any shape or form or fashion saying that black people are all monolithic. We are not all a monolithic people. Monolithic. Okay. That means basically that we don't all think alike. Okay. We don't all think alike. Some of us are very conservative. Some of us are very progressive, very liberal, right? Some of us are in the middle. Some of us are super religious. Some of us are not super religious, right? So I'm recognizing that it isn't the issue of being conservative. It's the issue of you can still be a black conservative while at the same time recognize some of the social issues that black people still deal with. Okay. Now, Larry Elder made very damning accusations that black people are somehow more violent than anyone else, that we're somehow the biggest crime givers. We do the most crime in this society. Okay. That we're just complete wretched type people. And Lions Den did a hell of a job finding. Now, Lions Den, you found some data, right? You found data before I played this clip. You found some good data, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. I found a lot of good data and 3 different sources as well, as long as the FBI crime statistics is also.
Okay.
So all this is ready to go.
Okay. So let me fire up the first clip, and hopefully this will open up one's mind. This is Larry Elder, one of our favorite black conservatives. The man is a complete token. I mean, he's that character in Django Unchained, okay, that Samuel Jackson played, which is why I put that on the thumbnail tonight. Okay, hope y'all enjoy that thumbnail, baby. Here we go.
So I want to look at my notes for this. According to this, you are black. Is that correct?
That is correct.
That is correct. Okay.
Not African American. That's not a term I like.
How come you don't like the term African?
Ridiculous. I was born and raised in America. I've never been to Africa.
Let's stop right there. Let's stop right there.
Oh, boy.
Woo! Let's stop right there. Let's play that back one more time.
Wow.
So I want to look at my notes for this. According to this, you are black. Is that correct?
That is correct.
That is correct. Okay.
Not African American. That's not a term I like.
How come you don't like the term African?
Ridiculous. I was born and raised in America. I've never been to Africa.
Let's stop right there, Lions. Then I'm going to come over to you. Larry Elder says he doesn't like the term African American. Now, look, let me tell you something. I'm not very fond of the term African American either. And it doesn't have anything to do with the African part. I have an issue with the American part, because we know that these wig-wearing founders, so-called founders, came over here, killed the native people, pillaged, destroyed. The Spaniards came over here and pushed the Spanish language on the native people, created missions, which is why you have a lot of people, Mexican people, Puerto Rican people, who will subscribed to the Catholicism, Catholic religion. That was culturally conditioned on them, pushed on them, just as Christianity was culturally conditioned and pushed on black people during slavery when we came over here, because we know that those slaves that came here from Africa, they wasn't singing nothing about no hallelujah, and they wasn't saying anything about they wasn't saying anything about Jesus Christ and and putting up blue-eyed and blonde-haired pictures of Jesus in their hut and their homes in Africa. They weren't doing that. That was indoctrinated on us. Now, Larry Elder, in the statement that he just made there, you could tell there's a term called hate, self, and kind. I think the Nation of Islam, Farrakhan, Malcolm X, they spoke of this. Hate, self, and kind. A lot of these black conservatives I'm prefacing this, folks, black conservatives like Larry Elder, because everybody is different, and I recognize that. The ones that are very extreme in their separatism, meaning their separatism from the rest of us as black people, you can tell he wants to separate himself. He wants to say, well, I don't like that term African American. I don't like the term because I've never been to Africa. Now, what's so silly about that is that that's the origins of your lineage, fool. We all come from Africa. The whole planet is here because of Africa. Black people are all over the world. So that's why it's ridiculous to say, well, I was born in America. I'm not indigenous to Africa, never been there. Isn't it funny that he's never been there, right? But I bet you he's been to Europe and France and sweet and Italy and let me have some pasta. And I bet you he's ran the bulls with his white outfit on and his red stash around his neck. I bet you that Negro's been all over European countries. Okay? But wait a minute. Let me break it down. As my man Brother Newsom, that I listen to on YouTube, says that black people have been all over the diaspora of this world. Every time they dig up bones, Lion's Den, every time they dig up bones in the world, what do they find? I'm coming over to you. What do they find?
They found black origins in one of them bones. Sure did. Everywhere you go, it's all black in the bones.
So every time they dig up bones, like the Chatter Man, or the bones that were digged up in Israel, they find out that the African people, black people, high vibrational people, because we operate on a high vibration, neuromelanin. We have the melanin in our body. The universe was created by melanin. The black hole, which created the solar system, created by melanin, God-given. We have neuromelanin in our mind, in our brains. We operate on a high frequency with the universe. And with that said, we are all over this world. Every time they dig up bones, they find out that it was a black person that was predating the Europeans before they got there. We predate the Hasidic Jews or the European Jews that are in Israel. We were there before them. Okay. Matter of fact, the original Jews were the Ethiopians from East Africa. Okay. And the last time I checked, Jesus was, as the Bible says, if you want to go Christianity on you now, I'll go it. In the Bible, it says that Jesus was of woolly hair and his skin was like bronze. Okay, last time I checked, a blue-eyed, blonde-haired man doesn't have woolly hair. Okay, and bronze is like this. You see my skin? I'm bronze. Okay, that's melanin, baby. That's power. But melanin goes beyond just your skin tone. It goes into the neuromelanin, into your brain, into the atmosphere, into the energies, the kinetic energies that charge in our world that we live in. So I want to thank everybody out there on YouTube that's listening, everybody out there in speaker.com that's checking us out tonight too, and everybody out there in Facebook Live, and everybody out there in the Instagram world tonight, because we're going to be on fire tonight, and I feel like it's fire. This is why Larry Elder is so... You ever heard of a term, Lion? My mom used to always say, and everybody out there listening, there's a thing called an educated fool. You know what an educated fool is, Lions Den?
Yeah, a person that's educated but don't have the sense, don't have the sense to the knowledge.
So you've got book sense, but you ain't got no common sense. Okay? So we as black people in America don't need to distinguish ourselves from our African brethren. We don't need to say, well, I'm not from Africa, I'm from America. It's stupidity. Black folks are from everywhere in this world. We're everywhere in this world. How you think the pyramids in South America got created? They've already predated it and found out that there's a pyramid in Egypt. They said that the same pyramid that was built in South America and some of these Aztec and Mayan societies, they said that it was the same person. Okay? If you read the book that came before Columbus by Ivan van Sertima, 800 BC, you had Africans coming over here trading gold and silver with native people in this world we call America. Okay? I'm going to tell it like it is. And as a result of that, when the Europeans came over here, they found stone heads, huge stone heads in the earth. Okay? Because the people that were here thought that the black man that came here was a god. When you look at Stonehenge, that was black folks that built Stonehenge. That wasn't Europeans. Even in Japanese culture, the samurai, the word samurai derives from African word. And you had some of the samurai that had African ancestry because there's books out there and documentation about the black African presence in Japan and in China. And those samurai, some of them had African ancestry. Do your homework. Black folks, we're from all over the diaspora of this world. There's no need to say, I'm American, I was here. There's no need to get into what the black Hebrew Israelites talk about, where they say, well, the black people in America are different from the Africans that are in Africa. There's no need to get into that type of talk. We are all over this globe. Okay? We're all over this globe, all over the place, everywhere. All right. You keep digging, you're going to find us. Hell, if they keep digging when they go to Mars, if they ever get to Mars by 2020, okay, if you go up to some of these planets up in the stars and start digging, you might find black people's bones in some of them planets. And they already said, Lions Den, they've done studies about this. Do you know that space travel does damage to the body of Europeans? But if a black man travels in space, it doesn't interfere with our body. Because you know why? Because we have the melanin. The universe was created by melanin. The elements is already in our body. We're from the stars. So that's why when you ask yourself scientifically, why is it that black people are not affected by space travel? Because we from space. And I ain't talking about ET and aliens and UFOs. I'm saying metaphysically, spiritually. We are the original people. Do your research. Now, with that said, Larry Elder is a complete, he's a complete scratch your head and ask for the cornbread. Let's continue.
Why am I an African American? Most of my people have been here longer than most of the other people in this room. Yet most people don't have a hyphen. I'm an Italian American, Greek American, Romanian American. It's an absurd term.
Let me stop right there, Lions Den. He's a liar. If I was to go to New York or go to an Italian person and say, hey, you shouldn't say you're proud to be Italian American. You should just call yourself American. What do you think would happen to me if I was to go to New York and say that to someone that's Italian, Lions Den?
First of all, the Italian people would cut your butt out for saying stuff like that.
No, brother. I would get my butt kicked. Matter of fact, you saw those gangster movies. They probably would put me in a box and have me swimming with the fishes. And you know what that means. Okay? You never hear you never hear an Irish person say, I'm not proud to be Irish American. You never hear an Italian say, I'm not proud to be Italian American. All other ethnic groups will use the hyphenated, I'm Italian American, I'm this American. Everybody says it and have no problem saying it. So why is it that Larry Elders wants to point black people out as if we're the only ones that are only ones using this hyphenated type of phrase? That's where he's disingenuous. He's a liar. He's a buffoon, scratching for the cornbread once again. As I say to you again, Lions Den, let's hear the rest of what this buffoon was saying.
The term that Jesse Jackson almost single-handedly crammed down the throats of our media, and after Jackson began to talk about why blacks should have some connection to Africa, all of a sudden, New York Times, LA Times, all of the media began using that expression. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, I personally don't...
Let me stop it right there. Lions Den, listen to what he's saying. He's blaming us calling ourselves African American, those of us that do, on Jesse Jackson, that Jesse Jackson coined the phrase. And therefore, because Jesse Jackson said it, all of us ignorant Negroes in America follow Jesse Jackson to change our name to being African American. Okay. You notice how he downgrades the term African American. The question is, what's so negative about using the term African? This is a throwback, Lions Den, to the stereotype. See, he doesn't like himself. So therefore, he sees being called African as negative. But if I was to ask this Negro, does he have a problem with just calling himself American? This Negro would basically tell you, yeah, I love calling myself American. But he doesn't want to associate himself with anything that's black. This is the problem with black conservatives like him, completely off code, which is why we can't have these type of individuals in our community. These are the individuals that will turn on us. These are the individuals that turned on Nat Turner when he did the slaver votes. It was Negroes like Larry Elder who will sell you up the river for a couple of dime pieces, a couple of trinkets. Lions Den, what is your opinion about that?
You know what? It's a shameful that Larry Elders, had the audacity, to say that he's not African American. He was born and not represent himself. But like you said, it's called self-hate. He's hating himself, and like you said, he's always been hating himself. And this is the problem with black conservatives, that and I'm not saying all black conservatives are like that. I'm talking about some black conservatives that saying that they hating themselves, the self-hate that I'm not African American, but I'm black, I'm born in America. But yet your ancestry is African. So you tell me you hate your own self? Come on, man. This is ridiculous info. So the reality is that you're seeing what Larry Elders was doing. He's basically trying to distance himself from calling himself African American, which we all know his ancestry is African American, but he don't want to be associated with that. So my thing is that he's basically saying, I'm American. I was born in American. I'm not African. But fool, you are African. Your ancestry is African. Deal with it.
So, they stated in the chat room on YouTube that he's Larry Elder is a super coon. He's a super coon. I'm a coon for the cornbread. Yes, I'm a coon for the cornbread. I mean, come on, Lions Den. We have to be honest about it, brother. Let me continue the audio.
Yeah.
use the term African American that much, because one time I had a guest on the show and I referred to her as African American. She said, well, I'm actually Jamaican. So, you know what I mean? So I guess that goes to your point. So,
and I remember reading one time, Dave, somebody was given a description of some suspect who had done some crime, was running away, and he was described as an African American. How do you know where he was from? Could have been from Africa, could have been from Jamaica, could have been from Canada.
So what do you make? What do you make of that when someone like? Because I know you really rail against Jesse Jackson and these guys on the left that use, and I want to talk a lot about identity politics.
Okay.
So the guys that use these phrases, what are they going for there?
Well,
what is the goal there?
The goal is to tell black people that we're victims, that discrimination and racism remain major problems in America when in fact they don't, and they want.
Oh my God, Lyons! Didn't you hear what he just said? He just sat up there and said that Jesse Jackson, he's got some issue with Jesse Jackson. I mean, did Jesse Jackson steal his woman in college or something? I mean, did Jesse Jackson take a woman from him or whoop his behind or something? I mean, listen what this buffoon just said. He said that Jesse Jackson, as if black folks can't think for ourselves, that Jesse Jackson taught us that the biggest thing facing black people in America is racism. And he says that's not the case, that racism is not even in existence. Did you just hear what he just said? Now, first of all, he's a buffoon. Black people still deal with racism. We are profiled. The Kerner report that came out a couple years back stated that this is a report that came from the federal government, stated that there's two Americas that are separate and unequal, one white and one black. Black people still, even black people that are educated with PhDs, master degrees, BA degrees, black people who are educated still don't make the same amount of money as their white counterparts. Now that's been proven. That's fact. Black men are more likely to be stopped by police than any other race. Even though we don't even commit the same amount of crimes. And you got the statistics that we're going to play tonight, okay? We don't engage in a certain amount of crimes in totality in this society, okay? Black men can be profiled from getting business loans from banks, from getting housing. You've had housing discrimination. You've got black folks in Detroit, Michigan right now that are losing their homes because they're being auctioned out of their homes while they live in them. I'm going to do a YouTube and a story about that. Okay. You have environmental racism where they're purposely dumping chemicals in black communities. I can testify to that because when I lived in Oakland, California, in West Oakland, when they had the earthquake back in '89, they had the earthquake and they had the freeway that broke down. They were trying to give and donate land to the city of Oakland, particularly in a black community called West Oakland. And they weren't able to, they were going to make like parks. They were going to make some plaques. And they could not do anything with the land because it had environmental chemicals in it. So the black people that have been living in that community were exposed to environmental chemicals. You might have heard of, let me catch my breath here. You might have heard of Richmond, California. Richmond, California is one of the worst places you can live because you have industrial factories there. It's near Vallejo. It's near the Bay Area. And you have industrial factories there, and you have black folks that get sick there. Matter of fact, a few years ago, they found out statistically that there were more breast cancer with women that lived in the Richmond area because of the chemicals. Why is it environmental racism? Because companies that are owned by white people, because we don't own these corporations, are purposely dumping waste and contaminants in communities that are mainly made up of people of color. Now, that's the truth, and I feel thunderous about this. So, Lions Den, what is your opinion on what you just heard him say about racism not existing, that black people, that is not that's not one of our pressing issues?
Well, info, I basically just shook my head on that statement because he basically don't know. And I guess he don't live where we live. He doesn't live in a black neighborhood. He probably live in an all-white, rich, billionaires club neighborhood. That, you know, the reality is that we've been victimized with police brutality ever since we've been in this country. We've been murdered by police officers. Been vigilante, killed by vigilantes. So when he says stuff like that, info, it's basically he doesn't live where we live. He lives in the white suburbs, not in the black neighborhoods, in the black community that we've been victimized by racism, by police brutality for decades. So, you know, he's basically just talking. He's basically talking the white man's talk, but not talking how we live and how we feel for decades. So, you know, he just basically doesn't really understand what black people been going through for decades.
Well, I think that Larry Elder, like some, and I say some black conservatives because not everybody's the same, Larry Elder is a perfect example of someone who at somewhere down the line in his lineage, something happened to him that made him have a distaste for black people. You could just hear it in his voice. Because my question is like, what is the purpose of a black conservative and what are you trying to conserve? Because I don't feel that being a black conservative is about you talking bad about black people. And if you look at most black conservatives, the ones that you see on television, they tend to speak very poorly about their own race. They always focus on what's wrong with us, what's bad in us, almost as if white people don't have their problems too. What's up, Big L? I see you. Let him ride him. I can't make out what he just wrote. Let me see. I'm going to write this in a chat room. Let him ride with me for a week. He will see some racism. Okay. So my man Big L, who's on the chat room in YouTube, and he's also on speaker.com, stated that let Larry Elder ride with him and he'll see some racism. So, but getting back to where my point was, is that Lions Den, that you have black people who grow up, something happens along the way that make them have a distaste for their own race. And along that way, they have a hatred. And their hatred for us is really a hatred of themselves. Because, I mean, damn, man, Larry Elder wakes up. He ain't a white man. He may have a Eurocentric way that he thinks, but when he looks in the mirror, he's a black man, and he will be stopped by the police just like me and you. Exactly. And maybe the brother hasn't had something happen to him that would give him a wake-up call, but he's a classic type of black guy that something happened along his way. He goes to school, he gets education, he moves away from black people, he moves to the suburbs, and then he feels that he has arrived. And a lot of times back in the day, black people that would go to school, get education, sort of separate themselves from the rest of us. White people have had a history of saying, hey, you're different from the other black people. You're not like these other Negroes. You're a different kind of black person, which is why when it comes to black athletes, white people love to go watch. They like LeBron James. They like Michael Jordan, right? They see Michael Jordan and people like LeBron James as different type of black folks. They're different Negroes. They're not like us. And even LeBron James experienced racism in his home in Los Angeles. So for Larry Elder to say what he just said, and here you have a top-notch athlete in LeBron James who experienced the N-word being spray painted all over his garage of his house or something. He's just a complete buffoon. Let's play some more of what this buffoon said, shall we?
Black people to vote for the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party gets 95% of the black vote, and the reason they get it is because blacks are convinced that the number one issue facing the country right now is social justice, racist white cops, discrimination, systemic racism, microaggression, whatever new word they come up with, and it's a bunch of nonsense.
Okay, Larry Elder right there is saying that the reason why black people join the Republican Party, or we're a part of the Republican Party, is simply because the Republican Party pushes the social justice, because we're on a social justice tip, and because they're on a social justice tip, and because black people are focused on racism. At the last time I checked, the reason why black people have followed the Republican Party is because over the years, they have addressed issues that we are impacted by. We are impacted by social issues and racism. Remember, as I said earlier in the show, most black people in this country at one point in time were Republicans. We became Democrats because the Dixiecrats jumped from the Democratic Party over to the Republican Party. Okay? So those racists in the Dixiecrat Party, they jumped ship. And the Republicans who had a different philosophy as their party changed, they jumped over to the Democratic Party. But it's all one and the same. It's just one screws you different than the other. The point of the matter is that this is my question to everybody listening. What's wrong with believing in social justice? What's wrong with protesting that which is wrong? So if Trayvon Martin is killed, or Eric Garner is choked to death, or Michael Brown is shot to death, or black people are mistreated every day, are we just simply supposed to say, well, you know, I'm an American, I'm not an African American, and I should just focus on being a good black conservative, and you know, racism doesn't exist. We don't need social justice. Everything is just hunky-dory. Okay? Black people, racism's over. Prejudice is over. You have arrived, baby. You have arrived. What do you say, Lions Den? What do you say?
It's really funny that, you know, he's up there saying it's just hilarious info that he made this comment about, you know, when it comes because Jesse Jackson. But see, the point is that reality is that we really built this country. And for some people that will say that, like Larry Elders, that believe in, well, you know, I'm not African and I'm just American. I was born here. But really, info that this guy, Larry Elders, he doesn't see that when you come to our neighborhood, you're going to be treated, when police stops you, you're going to see how it felt. You're going to see if police officers going to stop you for no reason. Look what happened to Senator of South Carolina. When he's been stopped, he's a Republican, info. He's a black Republican. He's been stopped. He even said it in the Senate floor. He's been stopped 5 times for being black. So Larry Elders, again, being self-hatred, trying to say that I'm not black, I'm not African-American, and try to distort it our people, which just proves that he is like us, but yet he's still living in a fantasy world that I'm not like y'all, in a way.
Well, like I said, when you diagnose a black conservative that thinks this way, usually something along the line happened in their life that made them have a problem with black people in themselves. Yeah. It's really a reflection of self-hate, my brother. I don't know if maybe when he was in school, maybe the sisters wasn't checking for him. He keeps talking about Jesse Jackson. I I think maybe Jesse Jackson stole a woman from him or something. Maybe he was digging a woman and Jesse Jackson just Mac Daddy the woman from him or something. I mean, what is up with these black conservatives, and why do they spend so much time just talking about black people? You know?
When you keep bringing up Jesse Jackson, I agree with you, Info. What did he do to you? What did Jesse Jackson ever do to you? Or did he steal your woman from you or something? Is that he using an excuse to, again, stay away from himself? He's always self-hate. He's using an excuse to push himself away from the black community. So he's just using Jesse Jackson's, using Minister Farrakhan's, Al Sharpton's. He try to distance himself from that. Well, I'm not like them. I'm the different type of black person. And at the end of the day, you're still African American. Your ancestors from Africa. So again, deal with it. But again, you deal with these conservatives that don't want to deal with our issues.
Well, let me just say here, this is part of being off code. Black people, this is what we have to understand. This is why we have this problem in the black community. There's no punishment for black people who get off code like this. There's no punishment for them. This is why they continue to do what they do. Okay, in other cultures, whether it be Asian cultures, other cultures, there's a thing called dishonoring your family and dishonor to your community.
Right.
And when you dishonor your culture, you do something that goes against the collective whole. Because I am, because we are. That's African. But Larry Elders doesn't want to be African, as he said. Right?
Yeah.
All right. And I see you, Big L, out there in YouTube. Okay, so he doesn't want to be recognized as African. He denies his Africanism, right? So, but what happens with these kind of individuals is that we as black people have to create a mechanism of codified system that when someone gets off code and embarrasses us, treats us poorly, we have to punish them. So Omarosa sat up there and she was caking and cooking for one racist Donald Trump. So now that she's been kicked out of the White House, talking about she's going to come out with a book to tell about what happened, and she wants us to give her money. How do we punish her as black people? None of us should buy her book. We should never support anything that she's trying to do to make a buck. We should just turn our backs on her because there should be a punishment. And that's one of the problems that we have as black people is that this is why we have black people that could do this to us and get away with it a lot of the time, because we don't have a system or a mechanism to punish them for doing this. If we had a code and a system for punishing black folks who get out of line like this and speak out of pocket about issues that are even bigger than them, you would not, Larry Elder and many other black conservatives that are like him would never dare come out of their mouth and speak against us like that, because they know that there would be a punishment for it. But the reason why a lot of these black conservatives, the ones that talk about us like trash, because it's not all black conservatives are like this, but the ones that have this plantation mentality, this token mentality, this Larry Elder mentality, they are the ones that if he knew we had a code that we played by, he wouldn't dare get on the show and say that, because he knows that there would be a price to pay. I would argue that when Larry Elder gets in his car and goes out to have a dinner, he should be a pariah. Everywhere he walks that black people are at, he should be shouted. His name should be mud. If we had a code of conduct and action that is compensatory under the system of my man, and I must give him credit, Millie Fuller Jr., who speaks of the system of white supremacy in American society. Now, with that said, let's go on with diagnosing, assessing this plantation mentality, this castrated brother if we could even call him that. This Clarence Thomas development here. Let's go on with it, brother.
The number one problem domestically facing this country is a breakdown of the family. And President Obama said it. I didn't. A black kid, or a kid, not just a black kid, a kid raised without a dad is 5 times more likely to be poor and commit crimes, 9 times more likely to drop out of school, and 20 times more likely to end up in jail. So you're far more likely to end up in jail without having a dad than you are because of a white racist cop.
Right. So, but you wouldn't not acknowledge that there are some systemic issues.
Give me an example. Tell me what you think the most systemic racist issue is. What is it?
Well, I would say that because black people in most cases, in many cases, were descendants of slaves, that racism as an institution, that it just, a certain amount of it just exists.
2015? Give me the most blatant racist example you can come up with right now.
I think you could probably find evidence that in general, cops are more willing to shoot if the perpetrator is black.
What's your data?
Than white.
What's your basis for saying that? Last year...
Well, look, I know a lot of people would say, look what's going on in Chicago.
I know what they would say. Yeah. I'm talking about what the facts are.
I am Barack Obama. You're listening to Lions Den and Information Man.
Lions Den, did you hear what he just said? He says, tell me what some of the incidents have been. Now, he's asking a white man. This is what's ridiculous about this. The guy that's interviewing him is a white man. And you could tell on that audio that the white guy was having a hard time explaining it to a black man who's talking as if he has a Eurocentric mind. I mean, when you listen to it, it's almost as if Larry Elder would be the white guy who doesn't understand racism and how it operates and works, and that the white guy interviewing him would be the black guy, right? So here he is asking a white guy to give him examples. And my question is, why in the world or the hell would a white guy, how would he be able to understand what we go through when he is a part of the dominant group that executes the oppression against us? So why would the white guy have all this data at his disposal? Okay, if he was talking to a group of black men, which you never see him doing, then black men, we can spit it out like water, baby. We can go bam, 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 bam. This incident, that happened over here. Boom, boom. You had black people in Ferguson. After Michael Brown was shot and killed, they found out that the police in Ferguson, Missouri, were profiling, giving more black people tickets, even if they didn't violate anything, okay? You had a racist justice system in Ferguson, okay? Okay? You had LeBron James in 2017 get racial slurs put on his house. Have you heard about that? Larry Elder, okay? Okay? You had black men being profiled. Shot. You had black men being shot and profiled. You had Trayvon Martin, who was profiled because he was a black youngster who George Zimmerman felt that Trayvon Martin had no business in his community, that he wasn't even a police officer of, okay? You have data out there that shows that black men are being profiled. We deal with racism when we're on the job. See, this is what racism is not as blatant as it was before. Racism is institutionalized. Racism is now subtle. You could be at work and you could be experiencing racism. Okay? Now, check this out. As a black person, as a black man, I see racism every day. You know how I see it every day? Every time I go in my wallet and I take $1 out of my wallet, every individual on the money that we use is a president who was a slave owner that killed our ancestors. Okay?
Right.
Everything in this society is geared towards Eurocentric values. Okay? We make a big deal over having Black History Month. We have Black History Month, right? 28 days in the month. Okay? You've had incidents in which, this is in Los Angeles where Larry Elder's at. You had an incident at UCLA where you had a black professor who was getting hate letters was being made fun of. During a program in the school, they put a slide up and portrayed him as a monkey. You've got people who have gone to their office at work and they have found nooses. Remember the Gina 6 in New Orleans, where they had the noose that was hung? You have black people that get hate mail. Matter of fact, wait a minute. He talks about President Obama. Do you know President Obama? Okay.
I am Barack Obama. You're listening to Lion's Den and Information Man.
You have President Obama, who got more hate mail, more death threats than any other president on a racial level. You had President Obama and his family who were being called monkeys. They were being characterized, okay, with racism, okay? So we have a country that said we want our country back. That was racism. You've got a president who I'm sure Larry Elder voted for this racist piece of you-know-what. You have a racist president in office right now who's executing all types of racism, sexism, xenophobia, okay? All sorts of stuff, man. And so Larry Elder is a complete buffoon. But this is what a lot of black conservatives like him do. They want to be in denial of really what impacts black people and just say, oh, you're complaining. Pick yourself up from your own bootstraps, so on and so forth. Okay? So on and so forth, brother. So on and so forth. Lions Den, you got anything else? You got anything you want to say about that before I play the rest of the audio?
Yeah, I got a response to that too. There's so much incidents, like you said, and remember a congressman out of Louisiana receiving death threats. That's also as proof. You see an incident in Alabama when a man beheaded, found a head on somebody else's porch, and then you say that's not racism. Are you kidding me? There's other incidents, like you said, with the nooses. Someone called the N-word on the letters, spreading around. And I agree with Michelle Obama calling Barack baby mom. And that's one of the Fox News reporter called Michelle Obama Barack's baby's mama and forming a lynching party. Matter of fact, it's Bill O'Reilly said that. And you say that's not racism? Come on, really? Larry Elder, like you say, he's another conservative coon that don't understand the reality of what black people have been going through since we come to this country. So when Larry Elder said that there's no proof of racism and there's no racism, basically, like I say, he's self-hating. He said, I'm a different type of Negro. I'm not like those Negro. I'm a different type of Negro. But yet, realistically, racism is happening everywhere. Tamir Rice, for example, was shot and killed within 2 seconds in Cleveland. And they said there's no racism? Man, please, Info. This is ridiculous to me.
Well, Larry Elder, like I said, he was asking a white man to name incidents of racism. That's like me saying that Jewish people did not experience a Holocaust or some sort of mistreatment. And now I'm going to ask someone who's Jewish to name me what they, it's ridiculous. It's just ridiculous.
It's ridiculous. Very ridiculous.
You can't ask a white man to name you racial incidents when 9 out of 10 times white men in America are not victims of racism because they're a part of the dominant class in this country, and they have what we call white privilege, and they have the complexion for the protection. Okay, so his whole, like I said, I truly believe that Larry Elder, along the way, something happened in his life that made him have a dislike for black people, his people. Okay, and I feel that there's many other black conservatives who have that same type of mentality. I'm not saying all black conservatives, but I do see quite a bit of the ones that you see on television who get on Fox News. You've got who's that buffoon and that Sheriff Clark. Oh my God. With them
from Wisconsin.
Yeah, with them cowboy hats. Sheriff Clark. Oh my God. Oh my God. Where do they find these? I'm telling you, Fox News, I gotta raise my hand, give them 2 thumbs up in terms of this. Fox News, they know how to find these type of Negroes that will talk against us. Okay? I believe that Malcolm X said that whenever a black man stands up and speaks truth, they will always find another person that looks like us to discount what has just been said. So even Malcolm X said this. They will always find a Negro, okay? A bootlicking, a porky pig eating an oink if you can get it, pork chop and beans Negro, that will say any and everything. Okay, you can always find someone who will discount that which has been said. And that's what Larry Eldridge does. So black people say, hey, these are the issues that we face. Larry Eldridge wants to say, oh, black people, come on now. You're talking about being a victim. But check this out. I don't ever hear Larry Elder telling white people that they shouldn't complain about what they're concerned about, because you have white people who are very concerned on YouTube. I was just in a debate, not really a debate, because I don't believe in debating people who you ain't going to change their mind, but I had a little bit of a back and forth conversation with a woman who happens to be white, who has a channel on YouTube where she was talking about how it's wrong that the white people in South Africa are going to get their land taken from them, and how white people were in Africa for a long time and they should have the ability to have the land. And I wrote her and I simply said, look, the land was stolen from the African people of South Africa. The land was stolen. Your ancestors went over there, pillaged and raped, stole the land, used in colonialism, used imperialism, and stole the resources. And now the land that they live on was stolen. So I like the fact that the new president of South Africa is not buck dancing and he's not bootlicking, and he says that the land is going to be given back to black people. Okay, and he said in his statement, in his speech, that anyone amongst this is what you call being on code, baby, codified. He said, anyone amongst us who is against us getting our land back is an enemy to our people. Now, why can't black people have the same mentality in America when it comes to the Larry Elders of the world, right? When Larry Elder speaks like this, he is an enemy to our people. Now, I move on with the audio. Lions Den, if you have anything else you want to say before I hit this audio.
Well, all I can say is I'm just laughing because it's really comedy info that you got Larry Elders believing this nonsense and not doing enough research on what's going on outside of the box. So Larry Elders, if you want to act coonish, that's on you. But we as black people know what's going on. We already know we experience racism daily, day in and day out. So, if you want to act coonish, that's on you. But we as black people know what's going on. We know what's up.
Okay, let me, I got to say something in the chat room. My brother, God, Ratcher. I gotta figure out how to pronounce your name, brother. Your name on your YouTube channel. I'm sorry, but you made a good statement. He said that my brother, who's the odd rocker, the odd rocker. I'm sorry, that's your name, the odd rocker. I love this brother. I became a member of his YouTube channel, and he's very supportive of us, Lions Den. But the odd rocker stated that Sheriff Clark was a Democrat. So I stand corrected. Sheriff Clark is technically a Democrat. But I would say to my brother out there, the odd rocker, he might be a Democrat in his description but he talks and acts and thinks like these black conservatives that usually criticize black people. And they do it for white Republicans who, if they were to talk about us, would be deemed and labeled as racist. So you go on and let your black folks do it for you. Let your black conservatives do your dirty work for you, okay? And I'm going to tell you right now, black conservatives always call black people that are Democrat dumb, that we're stupid, we're on the Democratic plantation. Guess what? It's all a plantation, because black folks, as long as we've been in America, we've been on a plantation. This whole country that we in has been one big plantation for us. So it doesn't really matter. And my man, my man Odd Rocker stated that Clark is mad and crazy. Yes, he is mad and crazy. Excuse me, folks. He is a mad and crazy man. And like I said, Fox News, man, Fox propaganda news, they sure know how to dig these individuals out of the dirt somewhere. Moving on with the audio, Lions Den. Moving on.
965 people were shot by cops last year and killed. 4% of them were white cops shooting unarmed blacks. In Chicago in 2011, 21 people were shot and killed by cops. In 2015, there were 7. In Chicago, which is a third black, a third white, and a third Hispanic, 70% of the homicides are black on black. About 40 per month, almost 500 per year last year in Chicago, and 75% of them are unsolved. Where's the Black Lives Matter on that? The idea that a racist white cop and shooting unarmed black people is a peril to black people is BS. It's complete and total BS.
I'm gonna tell you right now, Larry Elder is complete Vovine excrement. Okay, first of all, he named some statistics. There is white on white crime. Statistically, whenever you get ethnic groups that live all together, you will have, so for example, when white people live all together, who do you think they're going to do crime on? White people are going to do crime on white people. If you have all Asian communities do crime on Asian communities. I'm going to tell you why. I work in the prison system. I deal with criminals. I've been dealing with criminals for over 16 years in the mental health field. I see their records. I see their crimes. So he doesn't know what he's talking about, because one of the biggest crimes in the area that I live, in the Sacramento area, is you have Asian gangs. You have Asian gang task force here. And the Asian gangs do home invasion on other Asian people, because they know that in their culture that the more older or the elders in their culture tend to leave lots of money in the house. And so they do home invasion. That's the Asians. That's big time. That's happening in California and all across this country. Okay? Latino people, my Mexican brothers, my Puerto Rican brothers, my Cuban brothers, my native brothers, they tend to live in communities close to each other. If you go to LA, you got East LA, which is made up of a large Latino Hispanic population. Okay?
Right.
A lot of them tend to commit crimes on each other. They're the gangs. I know this for a fact. I deal with them for a living. You got the 18th Street gang. You got the MS-13. You got the Mexican Mafia. You got the Norteños and the Southerners. I deal with them. All right. They don't like each other. You got the Latin Kings in New York. They don't like each other. You got the northern Hispanics fighting against the Southerners in California. Okay. They don't like each other. Why? Because when you live close in proximity, you commit crime on people who look like you, because you know the culture. Okay. White people commit crime on each other. Hell, all you got to do is look at investigative channel on cable, and the majority of the crimes are white people killing each other, killing their mothers, their fathers, killing the boyfriend, convincing the boyfriend to kill the husband because he's got money. I mean, it's rampant.
Right.
Okay, so what about those? Remember the incident in Waco, Texas, where you had the biker gangs?
The biker gangs,
and the biker gangs shot up the place. And you know, a lot of those biker gang members, do you know a lot of them did not go to jail for what they did? Do you realize that, Lions Den?
Oh yeah, I know. Believe that, I know. But info, he's talking about statistics, right? I got 2 proofs of evidence. One is from.
Go ahead.
No. I was gonna say that one. I got 2. One is like Michael Harriet. Shout out to him from theroot.com. And this is what he says about this. He said police officers killed 1,129 people in 2017. Wasn't they said there was 900 something killed in 2017?
Yes.
According to him,
he said that.
According to this is. Yeah, it's really 1,129 people in 2017, and more people died from police violence. And he said that police in 2017 than the total number of U.S. soldiers killed in action around the globe. When he talks about Chicago, okay, you want to bring Chicago up? I got him for that. Now he said that in 2011. He said, but 2011 info, 56 people were shot by police, Chicago police, 24 of them fatally. In 2015, 22 people shot in Chicago, 8 of them fatally. So he doesn't really know what he's talking about, info.
No, brother. He doesn't know what he's talking about because, like I said, a lot of this comes out of his hatred, his hatred for himself, reflected and put on black folks. So he wants to blame us and say that and a lot of what Larry Elder is talking about is a throwback to what white people said about us. Now, there was a report called the Frazier and Monahan report. These were 2 individuals who stated that black people were pathological, that black people were, that our family structure was pathological. And the reason why is because they were using the nuclear family. In the African American experience, we don't have nuclear families. We don't say that a nuclear family is basically me, the husband, my wife, 2 kids, and a dog. Okay? No, black people, our family is everything. Mom, my wife, my mom, my dad, my cousin, my boy, my cousin Pookie, who ain't even my real cousin. Okay? Okay? We take in the community, and we will identify people as our family who ain't really blood related to us, because that's the African in us. That's the high vibrations in us. That's our connection to the universe. I am because we are. Okay? So that's how black people, how we get down and how we operate. And you had the Monahan report saying that we were pathological. And so what Larry Elder is doing is that he's using the same type of stuff that white people have used to demonize us. But the thing is, it's happening in blackface. So Larry Elder is almost like a white man in blackface who does not like black people. Can you dig what I'm saying to you, brother? Okay, let's move on with the audio because we got a lot more to cover tonight, folks. A lot more to cover.
Reason for...
Let me stop right there. He also talked about the reason why we have problems in the black community is because you don't have any fathers. That's another myth, that black men are not fathers involved in their life. We've been conditioned by this, culturally conditioned by this for years, to think that black men are not in the lives of their kids. I'm telling you that there are a lot of black men that are in the lives of their kids. The problem is that the small percentage of us who are not in our lives of our kids, that is usually what is being emphasized in the media and by bootlicking Negroes like Larry Elders. Because there are plenty of black folks that have been raised like Larry Elder with a father and a mother in the household. This myth that black men do not take care of their kids is a fallacy. Okay, you do have incidents where black men are not taking care of their kid. But if the media and Negroes like Larry Elder want to make us think that all black men don't take care of their kids. So therefore, that's the reason why we're having these problems. First of all, most of these incidents are isolated to socially poor economic communities. So to set up there and say what he says is to say that all black people in America are poor, low social economics, uneducated, uncouth. All our families are broken up. And for some reason, only Larry Elder grew up with an intact family. And that's why today, not many, but some black conservatives like Larry Elder, who are totally off code, will see themselves as very special Negroes because white folks have put their hands on them and deemed them as a special Negro. You're not like the rest of those other Negroes. You're not like those Good Times and Jefferson Negroes. You're a special Negro. Let me move on with the audio.
These so-called activists saying this is the assumption that racism remains a major problem in America. The media, CNN, especially MSNBC, runs down whenever a black cop shoots somebody, and it's some march on Washington. It's ridiculous. Black people, half the homicides in this country are committed by and against black people. Last year, there were 14,000 homicides. I'm not talking about suicides. I'm talking about homicides. Half of them were black. 96% of them black on black of that 7,000. Where's the Black Lives Matter people on that?
So there's where you would say that this is purely because of social justice. This is purely because they want ultimately for people to be angry enough to just keep voting Democrat.
That's right. And where's the evidence of a lack of social justice? When a black suspect is killed by a cop, believe me, the media is on it. People are watching it, and justice will, for the most part, occur. In Baltimore, where Freddie Gray was killed, Freddie Gray died in a van. I shouldn't say was killed. Died in a van. Yeah. You have a city that's 45% black. City council is 100% Democrat. The majority of city council is black. The top cop at the time was black. The number 2 cop was black. The majority of the command staff.
Let me stop that right here. This is another talking point that black conservatives like Larry Elder bring up. What they bring up is they'll say, if you look at all the major cities, Chicago, Boston, Baltimore, LA, New York, they'll say that most of the cities where there's high crime, high violence, unemployment amongst black people, that black people are uncouth and out of control, are usually cities that are run by Democratic administrations. So I know where he's going with this, but guess what? This is what he failed to tell people. Even though Baltimore has a black mayor, has black people on all the different boards and all that sort of stuff.
Or city council.
Our city council, right? Our city council. Even though, I'm going to repeat this, even though what he's trying to say to you basically is that all these major cities, Philadelphia, New York, Chicago, run by Democratic administrations, that because they're run by Democrats and Democrats don't do anything for us, none of them do anything for us if you ask me, but because they're run by Democrats, that the Democrats are simply the fault for all the violence and all the problems. What I'm going to say to you is this is where the argument is broke. Most major cities in this country do tend to be run by Democrats and have a more liberal, in some cases, not in all cases, leadership. But this is what he fails to tell you. Most of the states where these cities are operated have a Republican governor. Where do the cities and the municipalities get their money from, Lions Den?
The cities, they get it from the Republican State House.
No.
Really, Republic.
The governor. Remember, you have a governor of the state, right? The governor sets the budget. So I live in California. Right. In California, Jerry Brown is the governor. Every year they have a budget. That budget can be education and whatever it is. They have to cut a budget. When these cities have social problems, whether it be crime, where the police need more money to fight crime, where the schools need more education for programs, where There needs to be more recreational programs for kids that have something to do in jobs. Where do you think the budget comes from? The budget does not come from Democrats. It comes from Republicans. In the state of Baltimore, the governor is a Republican. So even if the mayor, and this is another thing I learned, mayors do not control education. They have no control over schools. So you can't blame the Democratic run institutions on just Democrats. Republicans have the blame in this. Why? Because if you do your homework, folks, most of the major urban settings are states like Chicago, Illinois, Boston, Baltimore. And you look at who runs the state, they're usually ran by Republican governors. And those Republican governors do not want to cut money to these urban settings. Therefore, if you have a black mayor, the black mayor can't do anything because the black mayor has to convince the governor of that state to get he or she more funding towards more police, more education, more social programs, jobs. The governor cuts the budget for jobs program. When I lived in the San Francisco, Oakland area, we had a program, Lions Den, called Summer Bridge Program. It was a summer work program where during the summer you could get a summer job when you were 16, 15 years old, right? You know why we were able to get those summer jobs? Because the governor of California, the politicians put it in the budget for there to be a budget for summer jobs. They had the midnight basketball program, which allowed black young men to get off the street, stop selling drugs. And when that program was implemented, it was successful. And they realized that crime was going down and they got rid of it. You know why they got rid of it? Because the governor of each state said, get rid of that program. It's hurting the bottom line, which is officers arresting our black behinds. Because everything in this society, from the prison industrial complex system, which I know well, to the police, to firemen, they're all making money off of your negative behavior. Okay, it's a system set in place. So Larry Elders don't know what he's talking about because we're going to listen to more of this crap by Larry Elder.
Black. The mayor is black. The AG is black. And yet here we are talking about racism. I mean, it's absurd. Yeah. It's absurd.
So it's funny. I find myself caught in between this.
Let me say this one more thing. I'm from Baltimore. When I went to Baltimore Lions Den, when I was in Baltimore, one of the things, because this is to break down his argument. He says that because the mayor is black, the board is black, and now we're talking about racism. What is that about? Let me tell you what it's about. The majority of and you probably see this living in the DC area, the majority of the police officers in Baltimore are white. Even though the mayor could be black, even though the board of regents could be black, the majority of the police officers in Baltimore are not black. They are white. And most of them don't even live in Baltimore. They live in the county. And then they work in Baltimore as cops. And you know I'm telling the truth, okay? So this whole thing, and a lot of these police officers, as I did in my last my other YouTube video that I did, which was the white hate groups infiltrating, the police departments. You have a lot of these white cops in Baltimore who are racist, who are members of Klan groups, members of Nazi groups, hate groups, don't like black people. And when they put that badge on, they're going to execute their racism and their prejudice towards black people, no matter who the mayor is. The mayor could be purple, pink, or green. Doesn't change the fact that racist cops, if they are racist, not all cops are racist, but if they are racist, if they do hold those views, they are going to create a lot of problems for us. Like I said earlier in the show, Lions Den, black people, we don't go looking for racism. It comes to us, man. It comes to us. Brother, before I play the rest of the audio, you got anything you want to say?
Yeah, man, let me respond to what you. I totally agree with you, and you're absolutely right. It was the governor. That's what I meant to say at first. But the reality is that it doesn't matter if he or she is a black mayor or and the police departments across the country. Even the FBI even said this that they're white supremacist groups infiltrating police departments all across the country, and you see a lot of lieutenants in the police force are white. You see the commissioner is white. So, like you said, just because you have a mayor doesn't necessarily mean that all the city of Baltimore or anything else is all black. Because it's totally not true. And I agree with you on that info.
I mean, let me just say, I wonder how everybody out there on the Facebook Live is, what's going through their minds as they see me and you make the statements that we make. If you have anything you want to say, folks, put something in the chat room. If you got anything you want to say, I'm wondering how folks out there are taking or receiving what we're saying. Everybody out there in speaker.com, I hope that you're receiving well tonight what we're talking about. I had a few boo-boos along the way on the speaker.com. There were times when there was some dead sound because I have to remind myself I'm using my tablet tonight for the stream that I'm doing into speaker.com, and I have to remember to hit the mic button. So folks, I'm sorry if you didn't hear certain things I said. I might have to review the podcast after this, the live podcast, and see if I'm going to be able to keep it on the system. I might have to record it by using the YouTube footage to record it. So Lions Den, I may use the YouTube footage to re-record what we're talking about tonight, because there were times when I didn't hit the button, and I know that folks that are listening out there weren't getting the audio. So if you're out there listening in speaker.com, I may have to revise this particular podcast, re-record it as a pre-recorded podcast from the YouTube feed. So just want to give you guys a heads up on that. A heads up on that for sure.
I am Barack Obama. You're listening to Lions Den and Information Man.
Let's hear the rest of what Larry Elder had to say. Unbelievable, this man.
A little bit as a liberal, where I want to always try to defend the other. So in this case, the other being black people, I'm always sympathetic to that. And then, at the same time, I hear you laying out a pretty solid.
Well, these are just the facts. I'll tell you something else too. There was just a study, University of Washington, and it turns out cops were more reluctant, more hesitant to pull the trigger against a black suspect than a white suspect, probably because of the fear of being accused of racially profiling and the fear that.
Let me stop that right now. Let me jump all up in the crack of his you-know-what. Okay, let me, I just want to, oh, my God. Oh, Lord. Okay.
I want to say something myself.
Woo. First of all, go ahead and say something, Lions Den.
First of all, where's this man coming from? Talking about that he afraid that there's no stopping with police and be afraid. Where's he coming from with this info? Tell me this. There's a lot of incidents that happened. Tamir Rice, Laquan McDonald, Sandra Bland, Fernando Castillo, Elton Sterling. All these incidents, and you talk about, oh my God, I don't know. He is gone, info. He is straight up gone in the mind. Like, does he even watch even the news of what's happening? Come on, really? You telling me that there's no incidents that happen with the police officers? And you tell him, oh my goodness, info, I don't know. This guy is really, really crazy, in my opinion. What do you think about this?
What I want to say is I'm feeling very angry and thunderous. Larry Elder has got to be, once again, the biggest, as my mom would say, educated fool He is an educated fool. He just said on that audio, and you heard it, that there's a study in Washington State that states that, in fact, police officers are less likely to shoot black men because they're concerned that if they shoot black men, that somehow they're going to be in a lot of trouble. If that was true, Larry Elder, boy, you know what, Lions Den? If I had some cornbread, go ahead.
I want to say something. If what Larry Elder said was true, then police officers that they commit those crimes would be in prison right now. A lot of black family members would have justice right now. So to sit here and to say, oh, well, they don't have no justice. But at the end of the day, Info, it's incidents. It's Larry Elders. He doesn't even watch the news. He doesn't even see what's going on. That police officers, like the Michael Brown case, for example, that the officer didn't even get indicted. Can you even imagine? He killed Michael Brown because he got his hands up, and this officer, which in the grand jury, didn't even get indicted. So to sit here and say, "Oh, the police didn't get," I mean, what this man said is just a complete idiot. He's an embarrassment. He's a fool, like you said, and for a complete education fool.
Well, I totally agree with you in your assessment, my brother. What I was going to say, and I agree with you, that, you know, if I had some cornbread and some grits in my hand, I would stuff it in Larry Elder's mouth to shut him up. To shut him up, okay? This is what I was going to say.
My goodness.
This is what I was going to say, brother. This is what I was going to say. This is why it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense what he's saying at all. If that was true, if that study was really factual, you notice he never told you who did the study. This is the thing you got to watch out when it comes to statistics and studies. Whenever someone pulls a study out of their butt, you have to know where they get the study. Who did they, what were the groups that they asked the question of? What were the ages? What were the demographics? I mean, come on now. Last time I checked, Washington State does not have a large black population, okay?
Thank you.
They've got black people up there, but they're not a big, large black population up there. So it's kind of foolishness what he's saying. Now, this is what I was going to say. And I'm just going to end it with this. If it was true that black people, that white cops are not shooting black people with fear of what would happen to them, then the number one question I would ask, Larry, let me give you some cornbread and stuff it in your mouth. The one question I would ask Larry Elder is then, why is it that every time someone gets shot, why is it always black men? And they don't even have to be committing a crime. Let's see, Orlando Castillo stated to the officer, hey, I've got a license to carry a gun in an open carry state. Hey, officer, I'm going to go get my wallet with my license that you just asked me for. And he gets shot. Why did Walter Scott, who got stopped in a routine traffic stop, why did Larry Scott get shot in the back, running from the officer? If what he says is true, that officers are reluctant to shoot. If that was the case, why did that cop shoot Walter Scott in the back like target practice? Okay?
Right.
So Larry Elder is completely out of touch because, one, he probably lives in a community where he's probably one of only a few black people who live in the community. I bet you most of his neighbors are probably white. He probably doesn't spend much time around black people because he's got that self-hate going on. I just bet you, Lions Den. This is why he talks like this. Okay, let's move on with the audio. We're almost finished with that part of it. And here we go.
the civil rights establishment was going to come down on him. So, if anything, whites are more likely to be shot by a cop under certain circumstances than a black person. And in the last 30 or 40 years, the percentage of suspects killed by cops who are black has declined 75%. However, the percentage of whites killed by cops has flatlined.
Yeah.
And so, if anything, people are more concerned about shooting black people for fear that they're going to be called racist. And almost every one of these incidents, whether it's Eric Gardner in New York, who died because he was selling loosies and resisted arrest, whether it's Tamir Rice in Cleveland, who was twirling around the gun, whether it's Michael Brown in Ferguson, who had just committed a strong arm robbery.
Stop right there. Stop right there. This is what he said. Listen, this is why you can tell that Larry Elder is completely off code. He's completely self-hating. He is the character in Django Unchained that you see on my thumbnail. Okay, he's Stevenson. He's Stevenson in Django Unchained. He's completely Stevenson in the scene in Django Unchained when Candy, his master, got shot. He cried. He said, "No!" This is what Larry Elder is. Now listen to what he just said. He said, that you notice what he did? I'm going to say this. In America, we are culturally conditioned. It manifests itself in this way. We are culturally conditioned to see black as inferior, white as superior. And then as a manifestation of that cultural conditioning, we will underestimate, undervalue, and marginalize black people. We do it to ourselves, and white people do it to us as well, marginalize us. And out of that, what's up, Superfly75? Good to see you, brother. Thank you for the support. Thank you for the support, brother. But that's out on YouTube, folks. So we marginalize ourselves. You just heard Larry Elder on that audio marginalize black people. He said Tamir Rice was twirling a gun. Like it wasn't even a real gun, and he was in a playground, you fool. And he was only 12 years old, but he says he's twirling it around. So he's twirling it around. So he got killed, right? When he shouldn't have been killed. Okay, let's see. He said Eric Garner got choked selling Lucy cigarettes. You see how he marginalized it? And then he lied. He said that Michael Brown did a strong arm robbery and got shot. No. Do you know what a strong arm robbery is, you buffoon? A strong arm robbery is when you use a weapon. You go into the store with a gun and you say, "Give me everything you got. Drop it right now." That's a strong arm robbery. It involves firearms. And I know this because I deal with criminals over 16 years in the prison system, and I read their records, and it says strong arm robbery with a gun, firearm of some type. He went in a store and stole silly Raleighs or some stupid little cigarette or whatever smokes. That doesn't mean he should get killed. And the owner of the store stated that he already knew Michael Brown. He knew him. So he knew where he lived. He knew he was part of the community. Secondly, there was some conspiracy theory, I think, that my man, who was it that brought it up? The comedian that passed away, Dick Gregory. Dick Gregory stated that if you look at the video, that he doesn't even know if that was Michael Brown who did that robbery, because there's some difference in clothing and figure. Who knows? But the bottom line is nobody should be shot. So he just named 3 black people, and he basically just said it in a trivial manner. This is the type of handkerchief, cornbread kind of Negro that you got that is one of these conservatives who think like that. I'm not talking about all conservatives. I'm saying conservatives who have a self-hating mentality like one Larry Elder. Okay, Mr. Victimhood. It's not about victimhood, man. Black people, I'm going to say it again. We do not wake up looking to be a victim. Problems and issues come to us as it relates to racial stuff. We don't go out saying to people in the world, "Come on, be racist towards me. I want you to be racist towards me." No, it comes to us. I can wake up, go outside my door, get in my car, mind my own business, go to work, go to a store. I can be mistreated. Okay? Now let's move on with the audio. We're going to end the rest of this audio right here.
Every one of these incidents involves somebody resisting arrest. Why don't you just do what the police tell you? My dad said when I get pulled over, have my hand at 10 o'clock, have my hand at 2 o'clock, say yes, sir, say no, sir, make sure my paperwork is in order. And if I feel the cop is...
This is where it came from. Larry Elder has been taught to be submissive, to bow to the white power structure. Listen to what he said. And he said in all one of these incidents, they were resisting arrest. Let me say this. Tamir Rice wasn't resisting arrest. He got shot, a kid in a park. Trayvon Martin wasn't resisting arrest. He got killed walking home from getting some snacks to his father's house. Michael Brown, as all accounts stated, put his hands up in the air. That's not resisting arrest. And Eric Gardner was simply saying to the officers, I can't breathe. And once he says he can't breathe, Lyonsden, let me educate everybody out here because I work in an environment with people that are in law enforcement. There is a thing called obsessive force. There's a thing called force, reasonable force. And then there's a situation called obsessive force. Now, reasonable force is that if Eric Garner put up a fight, the police can use reasonable force to subdue him. Once they get him down to the floor and they have him cuffed up, you can't do extra things like take away his breathing pathway, such as putting him in a chokehold. You notice Larry Elder doesn't talk about that. They put Eric Garner in a chokehold, which is illegal in New York. They got rid of the chokehold because New York Police Department, okay, the NYPD, was being sued because of the mistreatment of people as it relates to the chokehold. My brother, let me power was getting low, so I'm trying to fix this a little bit. All right, Lyonsden. So I can see. So excuse me, folks. So all those incidents, they weren't resisting any arrest. Let me see. Should Walter Scott be shot because he ran from the police officer? Resisting, as far as I know, resisting arrest is when the police officer puts hands on you. Excuse me, folks. When the police officer puts hands on you and tries to arrest you, and then you fight the police officer, you struggle with him. In the case of Walter Scott, he ran out of his car from the officer and got shot. That was not existing. He didn't put up a fight against the police officer. So should he have been shot the way he was? No. So Larry Elder is a complete buffoon. I'm telling you, man. Angers me. Now, Lyonsden, before we, let me give you just a small taste of what he said about the gun right issue. He had really horrible things to say about people and the kids that are against the gun situation. Because of the sake of time, I'm not going to be able to play all this audio tonight because I still want to get to, you know what? Let me go right into Phil of the Avise Show statistics. Do you have anything you want to add, Lyonsden?
Okay.
Anything you want to add before I go into the?
Before we end, I want to share everybody with this, and this is just really the statistics, since Larry Elders know about statistics, right? And then this is this is what I'm saying. 170 of the people killed were armed with a knife. In 170 of those incidents, police shot the person before trying any other method to disarm the person. 20% of the people who had a gun when they were killed were not threatening anyone. Law enforcement training spends 7 times more hours training officers on to use a firearm than to de-escalate the situation. Again, only 12 officers were charged with a crime after killing 1,129 citizens that were sworn to protect and serve. So since Larry Elders talked about statistics, which are false, this is real. What I tell everybody on this podcast right now, the statistics that I just told everybody, this is real deal. He said 900 and something people, African Americans, were murdered by police. That was also a lie. Officially, it was 1,129 citizens. That's including African Americans. So that's all I have to say about that.
Brother, you broke it down. And with that said, let's go over to Phil of the Avise Show. I want to give a shout out to Phil of the Avise Show because he always gives out good information. The brother's like he's got like a professional news thing going there. He's always suited and booted and telling it like it is and reporting on what's happening. Yeah, so I gotta give it up to him. And once again, let me give a little shout out to my man, the Odd Rocker, and my man Superfly 75. Brother, I want to thank you for coming and listening. And once again, let me preface this, folks. I'm not talking about all conservatives because we know that black people were monolithic. We all think differently, okay? Obviously, I think differently, but I'm talking about the black conservatives like a Larry Elder who's in complete denial of what things that we do deal with, okay? Now, I ain't gonna lie. Like any race of people, black people, we got our bad apples. We got black folks who get out here and act a fool and don't do what they're supposed to do. Okay, and carry on the wrong way, and that's reality. And then we got black folks. I argue that we got more black men in this society that's doing the right thing than doing the wrong thing. Okay, and then you got a percentage of us who, for whatever reason, we've gotten ourselves caught up in the, legal system, and then you got some black men out here who are trying to do the best they can, and they're always getting F with. In some cases, Now, Freddie Gray, he talked about Freddie Gray. Yeah, Freddie Gray was an individual who was selling drugs. That's bad for our community. So you can make an argument that Freddie Gray, in some ways, was bad for our community in Baltimore, because I'm from Baltimore, because he was a drug seller at one point in time. But despite whether he sold drugs or not, it still does not explain why he died in that wagon in Baltimore. Does not explain why that man died, why they allowed him to die without proper medical treatment. He stated that his back was broke, or his back was bothering him, and they were dragging him improperly, okay? 2, I know for a fact from being from Baltimore and talking to family members that I've known, people that I know back there, that in Baltimore, it's very common for them to put you and black people in the back of a wagon and give you what they call a nickel ride while they drive, and they make you slide all around the back of there with no seatbelt on. And remember, they said that when they put Freddie Gray in that wagon, he had no seatbelt on, and they simply threw him on his back, on his stomach, while he had all kind of damage going on in his back, and he died in the hospital. He died consequently because of their mistreatment. Okay, so Larry Elder is a complete buffoon when he makes those statements. Let me play these statistics from my man, you know him from the Avise Show, Phil of the Avise Show. Let me play these statistics. And just so you know, these are FBI statistics.
What they try to say or what they want to focus on to statistics always when it comes to the African American community, but they do not focus on the whole thing of crime within the United States and who's mostly responsible for the crime of the United States. Now, let's go ahead and look. And remember, this is from the FBI. You see the link up here. It's not me making none of this stuff up at all. Just doing my due diligence. So, as we look at this, it's broken down, and we're going to look at the total number of arrests. They say 8.2 million arrests. That's on this thing here. Now, they break it down. 5.7 million white, 2.1 million black, 174,020 on the American Indian or Alaska Native, Asian, 100,000 arrests, Native Hawaiian, other Pacific Islander. You have 23,272 is what they want to put on here. Now, the total of arrests in the United States based on percentage, once again, at close to 70%, 69.7%, white, black, 26.6%. And then you see the other numbers. Now, according to the American media, according to the white supremacists, the black number should be about 70%. But when you actually look at the actual numbers based off what the FBI is reporting, not the Black Panthers or the Nation of Islam or any group you say that don't like you, this is coming from your FBI. Now, let's go back to the individual things they're putting down. You have murder and non-negligent manslaughter. Here, we look at the numbers, 51.1% on black, 45.9% on white. Now, remember, this is total arrests. Let me scroll up, because, see, the white supremacists are so remedial, you got to keep explaining this to them. They say this is the total estimated population. But this is the total amount of arrests. Let's say this again for the slow white supremacists. The total amount of population, the total number of arrests, okay? Because you're going to say that, well, you know, we're more the population, and yet blacks, only 13%, and they commit all these crimes. It's not based on the total population. I hope you see that. This is the estimated. This is the total. Estimated total. Let me say this again. Estimated population, total number of arrests. Okay, you got it? All right. So now, as we continue here, I had to talk to them like that because they just ignorant. If you look at rape, 68.0, man, y'all went up from last year. That raping is an epidemic, and y'all not talking about that stuff, but you want to talk about what black people do. 28.2 on black. Now, as I stated before, the 51.1% on the murder and non-negligent manslaughter. And also, you look at the robbery, that's high, 53.5. That's all relegated to low income, no hope areas. That's exactly what that said. Once you get past the low income areas within the black community, crime is literally non-existent. And that's proven over and over again. Now, robbery is 44.4% on the side of white. Now, don't get it twisted. Don't walk around like you holier than thou. Talk to me when you got the number of the Asian. It's like 1.5. Then you holier than thou, and you can open your mouth to tell us something about the 51.1%. Because you're not very far behind with 45.9. And that's with white privilege. Now, if black people actually had white privilege, our numbers would probably be just like the Asian number, right? Or probably even lower. Remember, 53.5. If you want to open your mouth and say something, look at the Asian number or look at the American Indian number, something like that, 0.9, 0.8. If you go get on your soapbox and talk to black people, you can't talk to black people having 44.4. You can't say crap. So always put them in their place when they talk to you like that, okay? If the Asian community want to say something, I think we maybe should listen to them. But we don't need to listen to this group of people who got numbers as high with everything on their side. Okay, aggravated assault, 64.0, 32.1. All right, here we go again. Burglary, 68.1, 29.5. We have larceny and theft, 69.6, 27.4. Motor vehicle theft, 67.2, 29.4. We just seeing who's committing most of the crimes. And don't you ever believe, brothers and sisters, that you're committing all the crimes in this country. And remember, this is what they're going to say, where it's more of us than you. Has nothing to do with more of us than you. Remember, as we established earlier, it's based on total number of arrests, not population. All right. You got to keep reminding them that. Now, arson, 73.2, 22.5. You know, we're not burning up the place. Even though I know you're going to say, yeah, all y'all doing riots. Still ain't catching up with you. Violent crime, 60.1, 36.4. Property crime, 69.2, 27.8. Other assaults, 65.9, 30.8. Forgery and counterfeiting, 64.6, 33.0. Fraud, 66.6, 31.0. Embezzlement, 60.6, 36.8. See, what the FBI is telling you is that we're not committing all the crimes, no matter what propaganda they put out there, no matter what a white supremacist says. This is their FBI telling on them right now, once again, for the past few years. 65.5, 32.0 on buying stolen property, receiving or possessing. Vandalism, 69.5, 27.2. Weapons, carrying, possessing, etc., 57.7, 40.0. Now, blacks is a little higher than that, but we still not the number one, of course, and we don't really obsess over guns like that. Prostitution and commercialized vice, 54.5, 39.9. Sex offenses, except rape and prostitution, 73.1, 23.1. You know, these sex offenses is through the roof. And I don't hear anything being spoken about when it comes to protecting children, protecting women, or anything. They just keep that stuff quiet when you literally have an epidemic of sex offenses and rape going on. But yet it's quiet. But you want to talk about Chicago? Please. Drug abuse violations, 70.7, 27.0. Gambling, 36.0. Black people, 56.4. Well, I guess you're getting caught shooting craps and doing all kind of other stuff, I guess, right? Let's see here. Offensive against the family and children, 65.8, 29.8. Now, offenses against family and children would be your domestic abuse, child abuse, etc., right? Driving under the influence, your DUIs, whether it's under liquor or whether it's under prescription medication, 82.6. Blacks, 13.2. Epidemic number.
Let me stop that right there, Lions Den. I think everybody gets the point. Basically, these are FBI statistics. It breaks down crime across the board. You can clearly see that a majority of crime that occurs in this country in a total population, total number, as he broke it down, he said that with white people, they're doing a lot of raping. They're raping women. There's a majority of white men fit the profile when it comes to being serial killers, the drug use. So this whole notion that crime is the pathology of black people. Now, I must say that crime is the pathology of black people is not true. Okay. White people commit crime. There's white on white crime. So, but you never hear them. You will never hear them say that in the media. They'll just say it's crime. So what you have there is a breakdown in the numbers showing you the things that white people do versus what black people do when it comes to crime and what the numbers are. So all of what Larry Elder was talking about was a bunch of vulvine excrement hogwash. Pure hogwash. That's what it is. Lions Den, let me just play you a little bit of what Larry Elder said about the gun. I'm not going to be able to play it all, brother. I know it's getting late. I'm not going to be able to play it all. I'm only going to play just a little bit as we get ready to transition to ending the program tonight. So let me go ahead and fire that up.
So watching MSNBC this morning, they talked a lot about the fact that many of these students from the high school where the mass murderer mowed down 17 of their fellow classmates are in D.C. protesting the failure of Donald Trump to take more action to pass, quote, common sense, close quote, gun control proposals. Several of them lay down near the White House in a protest that lasted about 6 minutes to coincide with how long the shooting rampage lasted.
So the adults can't convince other adults to pass so-called common sense gun control legislation. So let's listen to children and listen to their arguments about why there should be more, quote, common sense gun control legislation. And again, in watching probably maybe 4 hours of television this morning, in and out, not one discussion about how many people are alive because someone was able to get a firearm and use it to defend himself or herself, nor did I hear any discussion whatsoever.
So Lyons, he's basically, instead of him being humble and realizing that what those kids went through in Parkland, Florida was horrific, he marginalizes them by stating that there was no talk about people who have guns that use guns to save people. He's saying that, well, nobody will listen to adults, but now they want to listen to kids. See how he sort of talks down? He's a very arrogant individual. The bottom line is the kids have a right to speak their mind. They're going to be voting adults someday. They have a right. They have a right to speak their mind. But he doesn't really, you notice he didn't really want to focus on what happened to them. He's doing the same thing that the NRA is doing, reflecting. He's just a piece of work, Lyons Den. And with that said, brother, do you have any last words tonight as we get ready to call it a crescendo tonight?
Yeah, my final thoughts, and I'm going to bring this to a close with Larry Elder's comments about gun control. He didn't mention about some of the people that bought the guns that were underage, probably 19 years old, that had psychiatric problems. He didn't mention that on the show. Not one time he didn't mention that he had psychiatric problems, with the gun control or whatever. But then the kids, I applaud all these kids who are, that's been going through a lot when it comes to violence in Florida. It's expected they will have a protest like later on this month. It's going to protest to confront gun violence. Would applaud these kids for doing that. But my point and my final thoughts tonight is that Larry Elders, before you speak, before you talk anything, go home, do some research. And I don't even know if this man can read, but do some research, find out the truth before you open your mouth, because every time you open your mouth, it's misinformation. That's all I have to say, Info.
Thank you. I want to say to everybody out there that's still hanging with us in the Facebook, I want to thank you for hanging out with us tonight. I know it's late. Folks got work tomorrow. Once again, don't forget to check out the YouTube channel at Information Man Show. Information Man Show on YouTube. If you got your cellular phones, if you got your laptops or your iPhones, just go on there, put in there Information Man Show, Information Man, all 3 words, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. I appreciate it. Appreciate your support. All that you can do. We just want to keep cranking out the content and examining issues that the mainstream media is not going to examine. It's not going to. They're not gonna give it to you, man. It's all corporate news. It's all watered down. And so, with that said, I'm gonna end our show tonight. And I want to thank everybody out there for being with us tonight. Because information is very powerful. We need to share information.
Information is power.
And with that said, thank you, Lyons Den. Thank you, everybody out there on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook Live. Thank you for joining us. This is great. For those of you in the YouTube world, hey, wherever you are in the world, day, night, check it out. Check out the channel. And don't forget to subscribe. Very important and would definitely appreciate it.
Truth to power, truth to power. Wait a minute. We're speaking truth to power. Truth to power. Truth to power. Wait a minute. We're speaking truth to power. truth to power, truth to power. Wait a minute. We're speaking truth to power. Truth. Myself. Information, and lions. Welcome to truth to power.
This is Information Man and Lion's Den. Welcome.
Everybody out there, thank you. And I'm out. Information Man's out.